The following is a special presentation of iRacing on LSRTV, your home for sim racing. Live tonight from the Myrtle Beach Speedway, LSRTV is happy to say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to our coverage of the DJ Harris Designs Truck Series on your home for sim racing and iRacing Live, where tonight from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, this 2018 DJ HD campaign rolls on into the second race of what is a 13-week calendar, and for the first week of the season, we are happy that you're joining us on LSRTV. It'll be myself, Evan Pasoko, upstairs with you alongside Justin Prince and Gary Weaver at the LSRTV booth. Our producer, Brett Wheeler, is bringing us to you this evening, and Justin, we come off of the season opener a week ago at Daytona International Speedway that saw plenty of carnage, and we transition from the big 2.5 miler down to this Myrtle Beach Speedway tonight, just over a half mile in length. A very different discipline for the drivers tonight.
Yeah, this is going to be a day and night racing condition, basically going from the super speedway where you had 36 caution laps with 9 total cautions with about half the field having damage, to now shifting over to the short tracks where it could be a completely different race in terms of who we see up at the front, who we see battling for positions on this very tough circuit. It's going to be a very wild night of racing here, Evan.
And it is going to be a long night of racing, but you look at the score to pile on, although that doesn't necessarily mean a long night on the stopwatch, top to bottom, Gary, because we go racing for 250 laps here for the Myrtle Beach Speedway. That does clock in there just 135 miles, and we talk about what we saw last week at Daytona. A couple of drivers not able to make a start here this evening. We expect several of them to be back when we head to Martinsville next week for another 250 miler, but I think that the objective here is going to be long run speed. I don't think qualifying is going to be as important with a very small car count, and I think that we're going to see a lot of these laps be completed under green flag conditions, very much an endurance race almost.
Yeah, pretty much throwing that aspect, it's from expecting a caution to just, like you mentioned, the endurance race. It just throws the expectation that you had right out the window. So essentially, the one thing that you really never have as often at a short track is essentially it's pit strategy. So you're going to have to watch your tires, manage those as much as possible. So it's going to be pretty... I'm actually looking forward to seeing what these drivers do, determining on what they do for pit strategy.
It's certainly going to be interesting. The qualifying session drawing to a close now. We look back to that conversation we had about Daytona. Justin, coming into this evening, your Daytona winner is your championship leader. That's Aaron Smith II. He took home the race win at Daytona, and he therefore leads on top of the likes of Logan Clampett, Jordan Caron, your top 3 finishers. Again, the full results from Daytona, the championship standings coming into tonight. But for the drivers not making a start this evening, going to put them well behind the 8 ball. And for drivers who are getting set to go trackside with us, a good opportunity to get a points gap early in the year.
Absolutely will be, especially since Aaron Smith II, he is not one of the drivers who put in qualifying times to get onto the starting grid. So there's a chance for a lot of drivers like Logan Clampett and Jordan Caron to be able to gain some points up on Aaron Smith II after that race at Daytona. Some big chances right now with him being the only driver in the top 7 not being on the starting grid.
And let's introduce you to that starting grid. We go trackside, and this is a look at tonight's LSRTV starting grid. Gentlemen, we'll go row by row. Pole position on this one goes to Austin Edwards in the number 18 Chevrolet. He's the only driver, in fact, to go sub 18 seconds. His 17.951 going to put him on pole position, and he will be joined on the outside of the front row. That's number 32 of Daryl Clement rolling off in second.
In the third spot, it's going to be Kevin Maffett, who will try and put together some decent times. An 18.5 in qualifying, a lot off the pace. Alongside him, Andrew Jump, who was in the 19-second bracket.
Then the third row has Logan Clampett rounding out the top 5 position. And then to his outside, directly next to him, will be the number 8 of Lucas Cram. Rounding out the field is going to be the 7th place position of Jordan Corin. And those last 3 drivers have not taken a qualifying time.
And there is a chance, we were just discussing a post-race, as that's the qualifying order for Myrtle Beach, that the start time was changed for this race from last week. So there is a chance, again, that a couple of drivers not making a start here in time because they didn't get the memo. Of course, we do know of a handful of drivers who have said they weren't available this evening. And again, we will see them as we head to Martinsville. But as the field gets set to roll off the pit lane, let's talk about this Myrtle Beach Speedway. It's a racetrack that we have seen countless times here on LSRTV and iRacing Live. And even with these trucks, in fact, the asphalt D-shaped oval clocks in at 0.538 miles in length. 13 degrees of banking in the quarters, and then 4 degrees on the front, 3 degrees on the back straightaway. But again, the big thing is 250 laps, 135 miles, and one of the more unique characteristics, I would say, Justin, about this racetrack, you see the field pacing right now. Well, one, that pit road wall is right up against the inside of the racetrack down at this end of the track in 3 and 4, and at the other end of the racetrack, the wall's not there, but there's these curbs down on the bottom of the racetrack. Make sure these drivers don't cheat down onto the flat part as the lights go out on top of the pace car. Those could play big roles in tonight's race.
Absolutely, because if you take in the entry too tight in the corners, if you do that in turn 1, you might hit those bumps and end up damaging your left front suspension and or your body on your truck. You hit the inside wall in 3 and 4 where that pit wall is. That can also cause some issues. Watch the exit of turn 4 as well. Multiple drivers, including Logan Clampett, hitting the wall on the exit of the corner, heading to the front stretch.
The first of many short track races this evening. Happy you're with us at LSRTV. Green flag in the air from Myrtle Beach. We're off and away with the DJ Harris Design Truck Series Austin Edwards pole sitter. No problem. First time into the quarter. Daryl Clement really tried to guess the start. They're 3 wide. Now down the back straight away. There's going to be contact. Logan Clempett's going to get turned. He'll spin up against the inside wall. It is a 1-truck accident. No caution, we stay green, and Clampett going to try to turn that truck around. He causes more damage at the back end, and Jordan Corin also spinning. There's the yellow now from the tower. 2 trucks.
Yeah, multiple different incidents as we look at the replay with Jordan Corin. This is right after the incident with Logan Clampett, and right afterwards, he gets into the right front fender rather of the 42 of Maffett. That sends him off into the grass and destroys the front end of Corin's truck. So multiple but different trucks getting involved in that sequence as Maffett gets the end of longest line penalty.
And at the end of all of that, as we come back live, it is that number 42 machine who's given the UL penalty. He's the one who initially got into the back of Logan Clampett after Clampett made that 3-wide move, Gary, and that as the 42 was trying to avoid the truck that he had just turned, he pulled up the hill and turned another one. Just kind of a rough start for Kevin Maffett. I don't think either of those pieces of contact were intentional, but he is going to have to be held liable for the caution, and he will drop to the back. Quick caution, though, here at Myrtle Beach. We saw the top 2 really spread out, but mid-pack with 3 wide was awfully congested first time down and into the corner, and Daryl Clement is going to head down to the pit lane for service. Looks like Jordan Corin also in. So a handful of drivers, in fact, I think all of the drivers but your race leader in the 18 machine are on pit road to get some service.
It's everybody except Austin Edwards, so I'm not really sure, but apparently some of these drivers may have a little bit of a strategy. Not sure what happened with the 96 has a little bit of left rear damage is what I'm seeing, so pretty much everybody just trying to repair the best that they can. Looks like they do have at least 1 quick fix.
Yeah, to add to that point, though, as well, Gary, with the contact, it looks like Andrew Jump was running about 10 miles per hour slower in the pit entry, and it looks like I think Logan Clampett might have tapped him in the back end of the left rear to cause that damage, Gary.
There's an update on where a couple of those additional pieces of contact come from, and listen, damage early on, never a good thing. I will say, though, when you look at the calendar, if there's a place that I think a truck is going to be able to survive with damage, Myrtle Beach Speedway probably towards the top of the list. Obviously, we all know how aerodynamically sensitive a place like Daytona is, where this season opened just a week ago. Even in Martinsville next week, a much larger track. And then we'll have our first road course event of the season later on this month, October the 28th. That one from Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, Bowmanville, Ontario. So a lot of exciting things to come later on in the season. Of course, it'll be every Sunday, 6:30 Eastern Time, right here on LSRTV. Just waiting on the lights to go out on top of the pace car on a caution flag that nearly wasn't one, and they do go out, so we'll shuffle things up, double them up. Logan Clampett, the driver who made that 3-wide move, he'll be on the outside of the front row challenging with the 18.
Yeah, and this is great track position for Clampett, and we've seen how he ran down that backstretch before that 3-wide situation to turn 3. The question is, can Clampett be able to get a run compared to Edwards? Edwards ran the quickest in practice, the only driver in the 17-second range. Question is, though, will the slightly fresher tires help them on the restart?
Find out if it is going to be of advantage. The 18 machine does have the ability to control when we restart this race, though. Green flag in the air, and it is a very late start for Edwards. Clampett stays right there up top, and we are side by side for the race lead in 1 and 2. And the 18 a little bit aggressive there, pushing up and over the nose to clear Clampett for the race lead.
And that was a bit of close quarters contact there with the way the exit is for turn 2. And now Clampett has to just work himself back there. They have pulled away from the rest of the field at this time right now. And look at this run down the backstretch.
Crosses him over to the inside. They go in turn number 3. And now with Clampett on the inside, is the preferred lane going to give him the upper hand? Another good defensive run. And again, Austin Edwards, Gary, is going to defend a challenge from the 44 Clampett. I don't think he's done, though. He goes to the inside again.
Clampett not giving up that inside lane anytime soon, not giving up that run for the first place position. He looks again, slides up, almost makes contact with the 18 as they head down out of turn number 4. So that's going to be essentially a problem corner that we've seen, is that some drivers will be slapping the wall. And of course, that right there, Clampett just experienced entering turns 1 and 2, where those curbs down on the inside, that lost his momentum.
It really hurt him a little bit, but I think he'll be here for some time. Still with 239 laps to go in this race. I think Logan Clampett's got ample opportunities to try to make something happen, but you got to give a tip of the cap to Austin Edwards. He knows that he's under fire, and maybe the idea for the 44 machine here, Justin, is to not let that 18 just kind of settle into a rhythm and ride around a little bit and pressure him right out of the gate. Don't let him get comfortable. Here's another dive to the inside. This time it's going to happen down into quarters 1 and 2. Awfully tight on one another. The 44 is able to keep it up and off those strips on the inside of the racetrack that can loosen these trucks up. And so far, they're playing nice in a battle for the race lead. Another one that ends in favor of Edwards, again defending on that high line.
Yeah, if you're Clampett, you want to provide as much pressure as you can. You know you have slightly fresher tires, which have gone through one less heat cycle, through one of the restarts. And you also know that one of the weaknesses with Edwards seen in practice, he sometimes pushes slides up the racetrack on more worn-out tires in turn 1. Just force him to make a mistake. Do not let off the back bumper if you're Clampett.
And he's pulling away. Jordan Cora, next closest driver. Again, the 3 machine was the one that spun, or one of the trucks that spun, that led to the eventual caution flying we saw not all that long ago. He's trickled to about 2.6 seconds off of the race lead. So certainly Clampett and Edwards are pushing one another. They don't really have to be going this hard this early on, but the 44 is certainly the instigator here, not letting Edwards settle into any sort of a rhythm. And every time the 18 clears him, you think it's maybe a breath of relief out of the 18 machine of Edwards, but just as quickly as he clears him, the 44 is packed down low. I think Clampett's got a very good car. He did not take a time at qualifying, and in practice, he was second best to only the 18 of Austin Edwards, who he leads right now.
Yeah, they're still side by side, and just that last time around at the start-finish line, Clampett was 0.04 seconds faster, just roughly. So right now, Clampett, again, still trying to get down to the inside. He can get to the inside, but at the moment, he can't really find any momentum or grip, but he is definitely putting a lot of pressure on that 18. He takes the defensive line now. They both take the same line, actually, so Clampett's going to be all over that back bumper trying to look for the inside lane, but right now, that last time around, it was the 18 that was just ever so slightly faster. These two keep running in 18.5, and Clampett now looks off to the outside this time around, trying to see if he can find any grip on that side.
Well, that's been a line that Austin Edwards has been using to defend, so it might be a smart move as Clampett goes high, and that's going to give him the runs off of the corner. He'll utilize all of those 13 degrees to bank it on the outside, and look, Edwards is not going to be able to get the speed on the inside off the corner like he was when he was up top, and that time by, it was Logan Clampett scored as your race leader at the start-finish. Of course, the 18's not going to roll over, but that is going to be it. He dives to the inside, and Logan Clampett to the race lead, 21 laps in from Myrtle Beach.
And a very smart move from Logan Clampett to force Edwards off his preferred line, have the preferred line for the exit on the high side to launch off the corner, with Edwards being slightly more worn tires. The question is, can Clampett hold on, and will Edwards try and force Clampett to the low side if he can catch back up to him?
I think the 18 machine has to do what the 44 did to him now, and you can see he's really overdriving it. He got down onto those curbs at the left side of that truck, nearly got up and into the air. Listen, these NASCAR trucks are about some of the biggest things you'll see on track in a place like a Myrtle Beach Speedway, but that was an atrocious lap for Austin Edwards, who I think just got a little bit too aggressive in 1 and 2. His last lap was 0.4 of a second slower than that of Logan Clampett. I don't think Clampett's 0.4 quicker a lap consistently, but that mistake's going to really hurt the 18 because I thought the key for Edwards was to get right back on Clampett, not let him pull away. Pretty much implement that exact same strategy that Clampett had done to him, and instead the 18 machine now finding himself off the 8 ball and trailing now in second position by a good margin.
Yeah, that 18 didn't really have too much of a good lap, unfortunately, but he is doing the best that he can.
And it's really all you can work with. And now maybe you have to change the mindset. You flip a switch and say, okay, listen, I'm not maybe going to be able to charge back up there, fight Logan Clampett for the race lead, and go mano-a-mano at lap, what is now lap 27 as Edwards completes a lap there. But he's been able to kind of put the life raft out. He's not sinking any more down the running order that he was, like we saw in those first few laps. That gap fell to 0.7 of a second. It's still 0.7. So if I'm Austin Edwards, okay, I don't think at this point, with as much time as still left to go in this race, still in the early moments of this 250 lap affair, Justin, I don't think the right decision here, as he gets a little bit closer to the curbs, is to try to close in 0.8 of a second on Logan Clampett right now. I don't think that does you a whole lot of benefit, but maybe try to maintain that distance. Don't let him get too much further away from you, and that might be the best call.
I agree with you. That definitely is the best call. Just try and keep it to where you stay consistent. Think of the big picture, because you never know if there's going to be a caution. You never know if you can have something with pit strategy where you can gain the time back and then some to undercut or overcut to get by Clampett. The main thing is being able to stay on the racetrack without having any damage at this point, because right now with Edwards, he is starting to seem to really drift his way on some of these exits and get pretty tight, loose and tight at the same time, really, especially with turn 4 and nearly slapping the wall. You have to make sure you don't make that contact by that point, Evan.
Yeah, and sometimes, you get so far into a situation like that you're at that point to no return. You really can't do much about it. So discipline is certainly going to be something that's tested. Also, some bad news through all of this. Andrew Jump in a number 96 machine started this race 4th, was involved in some sort of an incident early, and then when we were under the early caution flag, came into the pit box and then took that car behind the wall. So Jump is out of this race, although Lucas Cram, who did not make it in time to take the green flag, is now on track. So there is no real net loss or gain as far as trucks at a racetrack. It's Jump out, Cram in, so that'll shuffle things up certainly towards the tail end of the pack. There could be a battle on for 4th right now. The 42, Kevin Maffitt under attack. Here comes Darrell Clement to the inside, and he's got him. As soon as Maffitt saw the 32, they had been kind of closing in on each other for a few laps. The 32 got there, and Maffitt wanted nothing to do with the move tie, let him go. So that'll be a swap for 4 and 5.
Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Yeah, that was a great job by the 32 of Darren there, as Kevin, unfortunately, is a little bit slower, and essentially last time around 0.7 of a second slower, unfortunately. So that 32 is definitely not waiting around for that 42, who I believe with that lap time, he's definitely killed some of his tires, I believe the right front at that point. Well, now that time around is actually 19.0, so 0.2 faster actually is that 32.
He's doing a good job now that he's, I think, gotten clear of Maffitt to be able to, gotten clear of Maffitt, should say, to be able to get some fast laps, and certainly they are pulling out the distance between those two as they fight for the final couple of positions on the lead lap. And Lucas Cram at the 8 truck is passing the 42. That is not for position. Again, Cram with a late start this evening. Currently runs 18 laps down, but of course, he's only 18 laps into a run, actually, interestingly enough. So he's basically halfway behind at this juncture. So his tires are that much fresher. So that is not a battle for position, despite the fact that the RP5 and 6, I don't really see Cram getting into this race. The only thing that he can stand to benefit from is, drivers have incidents, wreck out of it, and then he gets into a position where he takes those spots away. And you talk about a situation, Logan Clampett almost wrecked that 44 down in turn 4. He got so sideways. It was a great save, but the 1.2 second gap he had back to second has completely evaporated, and the 18's on him.
Yeah, that time you mentioned it, they're getting sideways. It's been kind of that case where they've been trading back and forth mistakes for the past few laps. This time, Clampett, he doesn't have Edwards make the mistake right back. Now he's going to have to be back on the defense, knowing that Edwards, because of that, is right in the perfect spot to get back into it. And they're back to running exactly even lap times with Edwards using them as a mark. The thing is, though, Edwards is starting to get a bit tighter compared to Clampett, with Clampett backing up the exit to try and get a better run and not get tight like Edwards is. That's losing Edwards time.
Yeah, that is certainly costing him, and you have to wonder, when you're running behind Logan Clampett in the 44, how much attention really are you paying to the truck in front of you? If Austin Edwards, I'm pretty happy with my speed right now. Again, the consistency has been an issue for both these trucks up front. Edwards will make a mistake, Clampett will pull away. Then the 44 makes a mistake, and the 18 will close in. I think they're pretty close, with a small advantage in favor of Logan Clampett as far as just overall speed. So, but you always have an opportunity, Gary, when you're that second car in line, to look up and say, okay, I can kind of pick away some of the things that the 44 is doing. You're on board with Austin Edwards right now. Clampett's right there. If you're running a little bit higher line than him and it's not working, follow the 44. Kind of figure out what he's doing. And listen, when you're going to have a long green flag run like we're expecting to see, you can learn a lot of what makes a car fast by watching some of the cars in front of you and basically almost mimicking exactly what they're doing, figuring out what works and what doesn't with your style of driving.
Yeah, and unfortunately for the 18 of Austin Edwards, that was the second time. The last time around, he got a little bit loose off that time around, but Austin Edwards pretty much hit the wall twice when he made that mistake. So last time around, he didn't really have a good entry into turns 1 and 2, so just instantly, he made 2 mistakes in that one lap after he caught up to the 44 of Clampett. So right now, I think what Austin Edwards has to do now is just regroup and just run his race as much as he can. Don't think about the driver in front. Just run the line that you're usually used to, and then if there's a mistake that happens from the driver in front of you, then capitalize on that, but don't let it distract you from the line that you're running.
Fastest lap of the race is the number 32 machine of Darrell Clement does come down to the pit lane at lap number 45. This is a damaged truck. The right front is hurt, and I'm curious if this might be the end of the road for Darrell Clement in this one, but the thought process that I was just about to look into is, best laps, and compared to what we're on right now, we haven't seen a ton of tire fall off 47 laps into this race. Again, remember, everybody but Austin Edwards came down and pitted at that very early first caution, so there's a small difference between him and the rest of the field, but I wouldn't chalk it up to anything.
You might want to throw away that point there, Evan, though, because Austin Edwards just spun out and smashed the wall and down the back stretch. He is smoking, and he's done.
Hard hit, the front end damage. Of course, you get a damage in front of that truck. We'll get a second look on the LSRTV replay. Was watching that Clement's not out of this race. It was a scheduled stop. That's where my eyes were. But you saw the 18. That was a hard hit, front end first. And with the heavy smoke pouring out of the back, there are 3 fast repairs available. So I think Edwards is certainly going to want to utilize one of those. But he's already a lap down. He'll be looking to get out of this no more than 2 in the deficit.
An absolutely huge mistake, and it was starting to lean towards that way where it was getting looser and looser, especially in 1 and 2. And in that case, hit the turtles in that case to shift the weight of the truck, smashes the front end, has to again, as you mentioned, take the quick repair, and now a couple laps down on the racetrack, 2 laps, just about, chance to maybe get back down to 1 lap down, but a lot of time lost to Logan Clampett, by far.
Yeah, and there's a ton of time to go, so, there's certainly some sort of far-out situation where you get back into this race. Listen, Austin Edwards is a fast car. We go racing as this time by with 200 laps to go on the board. I think he can make up enough time to get around somebody like a Baffert or a Corrin, but I just don't see Logan Clampett making 2 laps worth of mistakes. That's about 40 seconds of difference on the racetrack right now. Now, Austin Edwards going to make a big step here. He'll go to the outside of Logan Clampett, and for the first time, these two are fighting, but it is not for position. Edwards is going to make a move to the inside, and he will go from 2 laps down to just 1 lap down. So he gets on through, and now the question is, does the 18 have to take a gamble and really try to stretch one of these long runs on fuel, eliminate a pit stop to make up for that mistake? I'm surprised the 18 had that big of an issue. The tire fall hasn't been that bad. You're talking about, 7-8 tenths of a second off of their fastest lap, so it's not like they're completely out of control. It looks very snappy loose, though, and I think that's what caught Edwards.
Well, that, and of course, you talked about in the pre-race, the bumps that are in 1 and 2, hitting one of those bumps, as I discussed a bit, out of turn number 2, that really disrupted the truck as well, on top of the issue with 1 and 2, and starting to burn up the bit of the tires. But now, once Logan Clampett makes the pit stop, it's going to get interesting. He's going to be very off strategy for the rest of this race. I'm going to be curious to see how this works out by the checker flag for his strategy, because if there's a caution, he at the very least is in line for the lucky dog, first off. And second, it could be interesting if it stays green the rest of the way, if it's going to work out for Edwards to hold off Clampett.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and this is what drivers are thinking about right now. I think more so Edwards is thinking that direction. What can I do? What can I change? Of course, to make up for the mistake that almost took him out of this race. He was very fortunate with all the damage he had, Gary, that he was able to drive it back to the pit lane with that smoke. A little bit harder a damage, and it's really tough to say, what saved that truck, but his ability to drive to the pit stall saved him about 2 minutes of time. If he had to take a virtual tow, that 2-minute or so delay is like 5, 6, 7 laps here at Myrtle Beach. That would have been critical to his hope. So he does luck out in a little bit. He's running P4, not all that bad, I'd say, all things considered.
Yeah, that 18 is doing okay for the time being, but for as far as what Clampett's strategy is, as not sure if he got a piece of the wall in back straightaway. I'm not seeing any marks, so it looks like he's okay. But nonetheless, though, for what Clampett has to do, being off strategy, he just has to run his race, not really worry about anybody unless they're on the same lap. I mean, the only person that is also on the same lap is number 3 of Jordan Corrin, but he's running with a little bit right front damage, so more than likely have to run in with one of the walls either out of turn 2 here as he drifts up in the corner on the exit, and he actually hits it again that time around for that number 3. So he's probably waiting until his pit stop time is around and for that pit stop and to utilize that fast repair. But for Clampett, though, he just has to run his race and focus on his own strategy.
Yeah, the benefit, for Corrin there, the right front damage isn't all that bad. I don't really think it's hurting him lap time-wise, and certainly the benefit of the quick repair. If you're not familiar with the concept on the iRacing service, basically, without quick repairs, in a majority of the leagues that we see, including the Monday Nights, Full Throttle Real Estate Racing Cup Series, there are no quick repairs. So you get damage, you're stuck with it, you have to get it fixed. So that right front damage on the 3 might not cost you more than 20-30 seconds, but in the case of Austin Edwards, he would have been on pit road for 40-50 minutes trying to get that truck repaired, but they'll never get back to 100%. The benefit of a quick repair is basically you get a brand new truck, and it doesn't take any sort of time period at all. You just select that you want to utilize that when you come down pit road. So if we stay green to green flag stops, Corrin's going to get his 4 tires and take care of all that. But Clement's around on the front straightaway, the 32 machine spinning out of turn number 4. I think you saw that one, Justin. We'll get a second look. I don't think he hit anything, locked it down in time.
Yeah, locked it down just in time where he just started to hook towards the left, got a bit loose, spun across the grass, down the front straightaway, had a lot of space to back it up and able to get back and going, but we stay green.
We stay green, that's going to be the key thing, and even if you recall all the way back here, those 2, I mean, they weren't really separate incidents, I guess, but the 2 trucks that spun very early in this one, caution flag wasn't even triggered by the sim because they had both spun down, basically out of the racing line like you saw with Clement there off and into the grass. Doesn't trigger a yellow, of course, that was a multi-truck incident, so the admins manually threw the caution flag for that one. to slow things on down. So, you know, there's some give and take, but I believe if we've seen this many single truck incidents through the first 68 laps of this race, then maybe the guy who wins is going to be the person who spins the least, because I don't think we're done. It certainly looks like handling, and again, we mentioned endurance. Well, when you think of endurance, typically you think of like road racing, and it's you versus the track. You're trying to not make mistakes. With Logan Clampett 13 seconds ahead of the next closest truck, I think that's the mindset he's got to be in. There's no reason for the 44 to push and wreck that truck. He's just logging laps, taking it easy, nice and soft, back onto the throttle, and don't make mistakes. I think it's got to be at the top of the clipboard.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be the key thing to watch out for. And you mentioned you versus the track. Well, essentially at this point, that's what it is now, is that Clampett now, he's finally, now that he's not really racing anybody around him, he's got to watch out as I'm watching the 18 who slid up actually just under the 8, trying to make it by, who hits the wall at turn number 2. So a little bit of track position battle going on, not actual position on the pylons though. But like Evan mentioned, you versus the track is that essentially the turtles or the rumble strips down in turns 1 and 2. Those are something that are that's definitely a little bit race changing, as it shifts the weight of the truck, like you mentioned earlier, and it's that just that small difference in speed or traction that there is, and next thing you know, you're either getting very loose and you somehow manage to save it, or next thing you know, you're just overrun on the back straightaway. And I think that's what happened to the 18 earlier on.
We'll continue to try to keep our eyes peeled, because you could be watching a battle for position, a couple of cars, you know, working around each other, and next thing you know, the incident comes out from somebody that is running all by themselves. Everybody that started this race still in it, with the exception of Andrew Jump. As we noted, he's the only driver who has retired to behind the wall since this race started, and it is all Logan Clampett out in front. So the next main topic of conversation, as we again stay on our toes on our end of things to make sure that everything on the racetrack remains clean and green, is what is going to be the pit strategy tonight. Certainly racing at Myrtle Beach, your fuel's going to go a lot longer, and your tires may go a lot longer than what they will, say, when we're at a place like Daytona or a place like a Darlington, Texas. Those are more racetracks that are a lot easier, I think, to kind of figure out what the strategy call is going to be. Well, we're working lap number 75 right now. That's a pretty critical point in this race, just shy of 1/3 distance for Myrtle Beach Speedway. So if the pit strategy were to dictate 2 stops, I would assume drivers would be in the next 10 laps or so, but it could be simply just pit halfway, lap 125, and a 1-stopper, we don't know.
Yeah, at this point, I think the best strategy is, if you can make it on fuel, go for the 1-stopper, as at this point, it's looking like there might not be a caution towards this way, but you don't know what's going to end up happening, as Jordan Cohen just smacked the wall hard and lost a lot of time to Logan Clampett on the racetrack. I think normally with if you had more trucks, I would say go with the cautions. At this point, with the race the way it is, you're trying to save up, or go either lap 100 or try and stretch it to 125 if you can make it on the fuel at the very most.
Yeah, that 3 was so far and up and out of the groove. He was way out in the marbles, couldn't do much to keep it out of the outside wall, so he basically just scrapes more of the already damaged right-hand side of that truck off, and you know, maybe that's going to be a little bit extra incentive for him to come down to the pit lane. Maybe, I don't think, you know, it's really going to be enough to change his strategy. I don't think that amount of damage is going to make him think, well, you know, I was going to go 1-stopper, but I need this fixed now. Let's go 2. Otherwise, I think he would have immediately reacted. So I think everybody's staying on that 1-stop call as we continue to kind of monitor things. Austin Edwards still trying to work his way through the field. He's not all that far back off of Kevin Maffett. Again, he's got a big tire advantage, because he did have to come down to the pit lane to get that truck fixed with a heavy engine contact. So Maffitt's yet to pit. I think Edwards may pass him here sooner rather than later, as those 2 cars run 3rd and 4th position, both a lap down right now. But certainly Logan Clampett now starting to catch up to thick lap traffic. He's going to lap Corin, sorry. Once he does so, he'll be the lone truck on the lead lap. Yeah, Logan Clampett's already set a very good pace, although it's a very calm pace. He hasn't really done anything erratic aside from essentially what that move at the initial start of the race was. But of course, that was just him trying to get to position as quick as possible. So at the moment, he's just slowly trying to get by the 8 of Cram, but that's not going to happen. He dives behind Cram back to the inside now. So like Evan mentioned, that battle, that brewing battle, at least between Maffitt and Edwards, well, the last time around, it's a 18.7
from Austin Edwards, and then Maffitt with a 19.3. So essentially 5/10 faster is going to be Austin Edwards, and he'll just blow right by that number 42 when he catches up.
We'll be catching up to him shortly, but as we close into the halfway point in this race, what we'll do is take a quick opportunity to step aside, and when we come back, we'll see how the potential pit strategy plays out. It's all Logan Clampett early on from Myrtle Beach Speedway. You're watching LSRTV's coverage of the DJ Harris Designs Truck Series on your home for sim racing and iRacing Live. Plenty more racing to come. We'll be back to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina in just a moment.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
And back live from the Myrtle Beach Speedway, and we're going to look at a replay under caution flag as we return to coverage of the DJ HD Truck Series. It's the Ada Lucas Cram who goes up and over. As we were on commercial break, there was contact between he and second place runner Jordan Corin, who was, I think, tired of getting slowed down a little bit by some of the lap trucks, got into him, and by the time he lifted it, it just was not enough. And just as we saw the 8 go up and over into the inside wall, Daryl Clement also spins for the upteenth time tonight. He was able to lock it down and avoid major damage, but Lucas Cram gets the worst of all of that. The 8 machine heavily tore up. We've had a cycle of pit stops, and the lights are back out on top of the pace car, so we are getting set to go back green, lap number 92.
And that completely changes really the complexion of this race now. That puts the 42 back on the lead lap. Cram taking the quick repair, and Austin Edwards looking like he's taking the wave around to get himself back on the lead lap as they approach the restart zone.
It's going to be a very early restart for Logan Clampett. A green flag back in the air for Myrtle Beach. Lap number 93 and it works. And of course, we were anticipating the pit stops halfway. might be a chance these drivers stretch this thing, or they still go for the one stop or just a little bit later. But everybody with fresh tires and fuel. Clampett leads the first lap after going to back read. Cram is in second spot right now, but again, that is not for position. The 8 is a couple of laps down. It is Austin Edwards now back up to P2. He just passed Kevin Baffett, but both of those cars, courtesy of the wave by, were behind all the lap machines, so that gave Clampett a big advantage on the restart.
Yeah, a heck of an advantage in terms of track position because, of course, when you're one of the wave-around drivers or the lucky dog, you have to start behind all the lap drivers. So this race has taken a very interesting turn since with that, Jordan Corrin also went 2 laps down to drop into 4th.
And so he also gets a real big shot out of all of this and is very slow that time into the corner. He really struggles down at that turns 3 and 4 end of the racetrack, pushing way up the hill sometimes, the point where he is completely up and out of the groove, and there's very little he can do about it. So Edwards has almost been able to get by a majority of the lap machines. He still runs behind Jordan Corrin, who again, by being involved in the incident, is now 4th, 2 laps down. And then there is Lucas Cram, who is in 6th position, 19 laps down. All of them still in between Austin Edwards and Logan Clampett. So the kind of disadvantage there for a driver who neglects pit stops to get a lap back area. Obviously, you don't have the advantage of getting that fresh rubber, and he still has to pass all these lap cars. That's not the case for Logan Clampett. This might actually work out in favor of the 44 because he was in some thick lap traffic. You saw it right before we stepped aside to that quick break there, that he was actually 3 wide with some lap trucks getting by. But now Logan Clampett's got smooth sailing in front of him. And just as we say that, a pit stop by your race leader.
Not sure what's going on with the 44, but maybe a mechanical or hardware issue from him, but that's going to give the lead over to the 18 of Austin Edwards now. So Logan Clampett actually just decided to take it behind the wall from some type of issue.
Yeah, the 44 machine was leading. You saw him come down and into the pit lane, and he essentially took that quick toe to the pit lane. He didn't bring it all the way around to the pit box, and then took that quick toe, and at that point you're talking about at least to the point we had mentioned about the incident earlier on with Corrin, I believe, or sorry, Austin Edwards. So when he got the front end damage, and we were talking about his ability to get it back to the pit stall and whatnot, that quick toe was certainly to put Clampett away behind the 8 ball. So all of a sudden, the powerhouse truck in this race is gone, and now it is a wide open field as Austin Edwards is going to assume the race lead in this one. And Kevin Baffett, who's been in thick lap down traffic for a majority of this run, he's all of a second up in P2.
I don't know what else to really say with this now because, again, I think this is Edwards' race now as long as he doesn't make a mistake, but there's still a long ways to go. Under 150 laps to go, he still has to try and make sure he doesn't hit the wall, doesn't lose the truck like he did on the first green flag run to lead to the quick repair, because anything can still happen. You still have to make sure you keep the truck clean for the rest of this way.
Yeah, that's the objective, keeping it clean, and it ties in with what we thought we were going to see earlier. Of course, you can never really anticipate a curveball of the race leader having an issue and having to back out of the race. But Gary, we knew from the start, low car count, 250 laps, a vast majority of this race would be run under green flag conditions. And when you compare that to a place like Daytona a week ago, you have a lot of trucks out there, quick repairs available on a plate track. He's in a position where now it's a lot of stop and start. You get a green flag, Rex, and race starts, and as we say that, we have a caution flag.
Yeah, it was Lucas Cram, I think, who went around on the backstretch because he hit those bumps that have triggered a couple different incidents in turn 2. Ends up triggering the caution, avoids minimal damage, did not even make contact with the wall, it looks like, other than a couple scrapes. But that is going to re-rack the field once again.
And if that's on the front straightaway, he spins out and into the grass, and he's off the racing surface, and there's no yellow. But because it's the back straightaway, and that pit road wall is there as we rejoin things live, he's in the way, and the caution flag does come out. But I was warning you guys, don't get down and onto those curbs, and the 8 machine barely got onto him, and you saw how quickly it sent him around.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and that's something we're probably going to be seeing for pretty much this entire race. I mean, I've seen it before in pretty much other vehicles on this track, other series, and it's definitely a pain to stay off those curves, but by habit, it's because you usually want to use curbs. It's essentially kind of like a road course, but not even close, and these curves will definitely completely mess up your momentum, and so you have to really kind of aim for that, just not exactly try to hit those with your wheels.
And it almost feels, I mentioned, seeing trucks on a racetrack like Myrtle Beach, certainly different than, some of the smaller cars, straight stocks, and even legends and other things that we've seen over the years here at Myrtle Beach on LSRTV. These trucks sit with a short track setup just significantly higher up off of the racetrack. You would think maybe that helps, but it works against you because they feel a lot looser. There's not as much kind of weight centered right down on the ground that we've seen the loose condition on its own. That little bit of a tap, I don't think there was much you would have been able to do about it.
Yeah, I don't think there was whatsoever because that really has a big weight transfer that shifts it over, especially when you run your tires, of course, over those said bumps that disrupts the truck like it does, where it's nearly impossible to try and save the truck in that kind of a case. In that case with Graham, he just went along for the ride, and what we've seen with a couple different trucks so far today.
Yeah, certainly not the first driver to have an incident of such, and I highly doubt he is going to be the last driver to suffer from that as we get set to go back under green flag racing conditions shortly. I think the lights will be out on top of the iRacing.com official pace car this next time around, and we will see the revised running order. Of course, what these yellows do is it really helps drivers get back onto the lead lap. So Edwards has been on the lead lap, but Jordan Corrin, who's been a little bit stop and start, he'll get back to the lead lap. Look at the wave buys as Darren Clement's going to go only now 2 laps down. Lucas Cram, still think he's not digging out of that 18 deficit or whatever, but you're starting to see somebody like a Clement get back into the conversation. Jordan Corrin's going to be right there. It looks like your race lead cars going to line them up single file down the back straightaway. Kevin Maffitt, though, decided not to come down to the pit lane as the 18 Division of Austin Edwards did. It'll be the 42 in control for the restart as we go back green at Myrtle Beach. Just shy of halfway home at a challenge to the outside already. Look at the fresh tires.
Yeah, this is going to be a very intense battle because we know Edwards has got a quick truck. The question is, can he get by quickly? Maffitt's just going to say, I know you're quicker. Lets him on by on the outside. As now, Edwards, he's going to try and take off.
It looks like 2 very different thought processes for those 2 trucks going down and into the corners. As now we'll see Corrin in the number 3 truck get up on a 42. Look to the inside, and again, the 42 really not wanting to be confrontational, just drops on the back and gives it to him. So Kevin Maffitt's going to fall back into 3rd, a driver who had a good start to the season with a 7th place finish last week at Daytona. You saw a lot of the flames come out of the exhaust tip on that truck, like he's getting out of the gas sooner and maybe a little bit harder onto the brakes at entry, whereas the mentality for an Edwards and a Corrin is to lift and roll through the corner a little bit more. It certainly looks like Maffitt's using the pedals a lot more than those 2 trucks in front of him, and at least based on what we've seen, the 42 almost wrecked it again. He nearly spun out in turn 1, and that's going to put him furthermore behind the top 2. So it looks like Edwards and Corrin's strategy a lot better.
That's looking completely better, so not sure what strategy, or at least what type of usage that the 42 is doing for in terms of pedals or steering, but definitely a little bit too much. So it's just that small part of the track where usually you think you're fine 1 lap, and then next thing you know, you do the same thing on the slightly higher part of the racetrack, and you lose grip and traction in those tires, and that causes you to spin out as Austin Edwards got a little bit of the wall entering turn number 1.
He missed turn 1 by a lot. It's not like he got into the wall, headed into the corner, and couldn't get off. He just missed the corner and drove it off and into the wall, and he's still struggling way up the hill as the number 18 Division of Austin Edwards. He's trying to reel this thing back in as he's trying to figure out what's changed in the last 2 laps.
And right now it's going to be very difficult for him because the way he hit that wall, it really damaged the right front suspension to the point where it's going to be nearly wonky and weight shifting a lot when you go in the corners. It will feel completely different from what you usually have for the truck. So it's going to be very difficult for him, and you're seeing that difficulty with him bouncing off the walls to make sure he doesn't lose this truck and lose the lead yet again. It's going to be absolutely difficult now for him unless he gets a caution, and unless he falls laps down trying to get the quick repair. He's going to need the caution.
Yeah, that's the tough break there, is you certainly need a caution flying to come out if you find yourself in that situation. It's been the only hope of many drivers. You know, without a caution flag, none of the drivers, in fact, at the lead lap right now would be on the lead lap, because there was a point where it was only Logan Clampett after a long green flag run and the earlier race incident with Austin Edwards. Edwards got the lucky dog, got back to the lead lap. Recently, Jordan Corrin had gotten the lucky dog back to the lead lap. Most recently, Kevin Maffett. And those same caution flags are the reason that Darren Clement, may have a shot at getting a solid finish in this race, is the fact that the number 32 machine is just sticking with it. Sometimes you got to tough it out.
Yeah, Edwards is trying to do the best they can, and well, last time around, well, the 3 of Jordan Corwin was a bit faster, just by about a tenth, but essentially 0.05 seconds, as again, Edwards barely misses the outside wall off turn number 4. He's trying to do whatever he can, but as soon as he starts taking that higher entry, it's the fact that I thought something was wrong with that 18, and there may be, as I believe the 3 may have just barely gotten the wall off of turn number 2 on the back straightaway, so not sure what's going on with the 18, but he's definitely racking up some damage on that right side.
Yeah, it certainly looks like he's hurt the right front of that truck, and I mean, the damage isn't as bad as what it was earlier. The question is, how many quick repairs does he still have? We know that he's used the 1, obviously, for the major incident, which actually forced him down pit road for repairs. But if you don't uncheck that quick repair, you come into pit road, even if it's a small scrape on either side of the car, Justin, you're using a quick repair. If he didn't uncheck it the last time he was down onto the pit lane, he's used a quick repair. So I think he has to have at least 1. Certainly, I think an experienced driver like Austin Edwards, who we've seen compete. Oh, and another hard hit into the outside wall. It just keeps getting worse, and he drove it way off turn 1. He can't figure it out.
Yeah, right now, with the way that suspension is, when you get that significant amount of damage, it's like driving like with a tricycle, because your right front tire is basically near unusable, basically, which makes it difficult to turn in, makes it difficult to turn off, makes it difficult to time up your steering properly. He's nearly wheeling the wheel about 90 degrees to the left just to try and make it around the corner. He's still keeping the times about the same while dealing with this, but it's going to be difficult to make sure he doesn't have a hard enough hit to blow the motor again.
Yeah, you can only, you know, the damage is going to add up. One small hit, okay, 2, 3, 4. And it's always those impacts when you're kind of going in at an angle that concern me, because the principal point of contact and all of that, Gary, is the right front. Listen, I'll get damage in the back end far more times. I'm fine with that than the front, because the concern with the front of the truck is it's difficult really to tell. All we can see is, of course, the sheet metal damage on Austin Edwards' machine. If it's just sheet metal damage, he's fine. He's 2.5 seconds ahead of Jordan Corrin in second, and he was a tad bit quicker the last lap by as well. As again, we've crossed halfway and start to work down to the end of this, so we'll take a look top to bottom in just a moment here. But what we do not see is what's underneath that hood, and oftentimes front-end damage, especially in these trucks, can damage the engine. Of course, you can start to have your temps overheat, and that's something that Austin Edwards has to keep an eye on. It's not something we can see. He can get some signs of if there is an issue starting to grow from behind the wheel of the 18 machine, but there's no way for us to tell. That's why I would just say don't hit the car in the front to begin with, but he's really sliding a lot down in turn 1. 3 and 4, he seems fine, and it's funny because we've seen other trucks who have struggled in 3 and 4 much more than in 1 and 2, but Edwards, it's that first set of corners that he's having trouble navigating.
Yeah, it could be, I mean, it could be a way to avoid the rumble strip turtles down there, but that time around, he's probably pretty much sliding, entering into the corner, a little bit loose maybe, I'm not sure, but like you mentioned, with that external versus internal damage, is that, like you said, we can only see the external damage, so there are some small signs that you can get from the external, for at least if you do have internal damage, just the sound of the engine, or if you can't really hear the power of it, or the braking entries that you usually have, then You're not really sure the RPMs also as well in the gauges, so it's just something that the 18 of Edwards is going to have to really, really be careful for right now. He's hit the wall about 3 or 4 times at this point, maybe even a little bit more, pretty much to the point of scuffing the entire right side, so he has to be very, very careful with that corner of turns 1 and 2.
The benefit is he's got a number on the roof at the left-hand side. That's probably the only way we can tell what truck that is out on the racetrack. The battle for first and second has tightened up a little bit in the last few laps. We'll see if Corin's got anything for Edwards. But I did mention we've crossed the halfway point in tonight's Myrtle Beach 250. So let's take this opportunity to take a look at our iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game with professionally organized racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, and more. At lap number 138, it is Austin Edwards leading 1.8 seconds ahead of Jordan Cornyn, who has scored in the number 2 spot. And Kevin Maffitt, final truck at a lead lap right now, 11 seconds off, exactly where he started in third, though. Seems the thought process that the driver, that number 42 Chevy Silverado, is stay out of trouble and run a clean race. So far, so good. He's on top of Daryl Clement right now, who's still 3 laps down, scored in 4th position. And Lucas Cram recently in the 8 machine. Guys, he's had a lot of issues tonight. He has called it quits. The 8 has gone behind the wall, so he will join Logan Clement at P6, and Andrew Jump in 7th. And the drivers who are not going to make it to the end of this one and have retired. That is a look at your iRacing Midway Race Break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, you can visit iRacing.com to sign up today. And if you go over to iRacing.com/membership, some exclusive promo codes available to first-time sim racing users. If you just want to try the service out, 3 months starts at just $5. You can go all the way up until as long as 2 years. More info at iRacing.com/membership. Again, those codes are valid on new memberships only. And well, as we talk you through the running order and continue to watch out on track, no surprise, Austin Edwards has met the outside wall a couple of more times.
Yeah, and he's now drifting his way through 1 and 2. This is going to be a heck of a drift. And this is going to help out Corin to gain a lot more time on the racetrack. The gap is closed by at least a couple tenths just from that. And it's continuing to get worse and worse, I think. On top of the suspension, you have the tires starting to become a bit of a factor, especially with the issues he had in practice with 1 and 2. It's going to be a very, very difficult task to hold on to this truck towards the finish, unless he can get a caution or a pit stop in.
Yeah, I'm curious, what the deal with the 18 machine is. The problem here is the cause and effect's only going to get worse. In other words, every time he gets into the wall, he's going to get a little bit more damage. He's going to get it slower. And you can't just simply tell him to back off because, Gary, the 3's closing in. Jordan Cornyn kind of let him go early. Really, didn't look like somebody that was going to hound Edwards for the race lead and the race win in this one. And instead, all of a sudden, the gap's been sliced in half. It's now down to almost just a second between those two.
I think what Corin knew was that the 18 was going to try and push for the lead again and try and push his truck to stay out in front for that first place position, but you can completely see the different lines that's running. So the higher line that the 18 is running, even without hitting the wall, it doesn't really help out whatsoever. He slides it into turns 3 and 4 ever so slightly. Sliding, entering the corners, not really going to help out. So he was a little bit loose off turn 4. All these mistakes that the 18 is making as he slides up into the outside wall again, that's going to cause the 3 to catch up past him on the inside. And the 18 tries to get it back together going, but unfortunately, he loses that first place position.
Yeah, he's going to give it up, and it is new race leader for the first time tonight. The number 3 of Jordan Cornyn has gone to the race lead tonight for the Myrtle Beach Speedway in the DJ Harris Designs Truck Series. Edwards in second now. If I'm the 18, listen, there's 100 laps to go. Before we had yellows mix up the strategy, we were kind of talking that maybe it would be a one-stopper. You pit it halfway, and that's it. There's 100 laps to go. Certainly you can do that distance on fuel adjusted. I would almost come down, if I'm Edwards now, pit, get that truck fixed, get fresh tires, and then worry about catching up later, because the longer you stay out there, the more time you're going to lose, I think.
Yeah, and he's going to lose even more so because he's going to come around, and this might bring out the caution.
One truck looks like we will stay green, and listen, there's a reason we're up in the booth and up behind the wheel. I've got no doubt these drivers know what they're doing, but if you pitted, you don't spin out in turn 3 there, and you don't lose a ton of time. I mean, it's only going to get worse if you're the 18 machine of Edwards.
Yeah, this is just absolutely to the point where you got to pit if you want to finish the race, just so you'll lose at least one spot on the racetrack, but it'll still be a good point stay overall for the rest of the season. Think about the big picture, as the caution has been called.
Caution flag is out, and we will slow things down after, I believe, race control has decided that that spin by Edwards should dictate a caution because he was on the racing surface. Again, we saw this happen earlier in this race. In the opening 4 laps, so we had a spin that did not trigger the iRacing caution. I believe that may have been the decision because I'm not seeing any other cars around. Corrin, all right, Edwards and Maffett and Clement, so I believe it is going to be for that incident for Austin Edwards, and, well, his own spin may be the thing that saves him.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate. Something that you don't really say as often, but for Edwards, and of course it was thrown by, at least manually thrown by race control, since Austin Edwards, of course, there was nobody really around that area, so that's why the caution wasn't triggered by iRacing. But of course it is decided that since Austin it did spin out, might as well at least throw it anyway, just to see if just keep safety on the racetrack, of course, and not really jeopardize anyone else's race.
Yeah, certainly. So now this is the reset button that Austin had, and maybe it ends up being a benefit. We were just talking about how he should have pitted, and instead, Justin, he's going to pit behind Corrin, under caution right behind him. Expect these drivers to go 4 tires and fuel for what most likely is going to be the last pit stop of the race.
Yeah, and they have to make sure they don't make mistakes, don't speed. They're all at the proper speed limit. The question's going to be, are they going to be able to hit their marks properly for the pit box? It looks like all of them will. So far, the pit stop times have been pretty decent for these trucks, as the 42 overran his stall, and that's going to lose them a bit more time.
That's going to not be good news at all for Maffett, as he'll toss some time away. Watch for the race off of pit road, though. Edwards with a challenge, but he's not going to get there, and it'll be Corrin. Good job by the 3 to come in first and come out first. And the 18 machine, noticeably, we were discussing, had he possibly used up those quick repairs? Well, there is still right front damage on Austin Edwards' machine, and he's going to come right back down pit road.
Yeah, so maybe it's just that Austin Edwards wanted to get those 4 tires first. He did come down pit road, so maybe he was saving his fast repair for this time that he came down pit road, just to see if he could maybe use that fast repair. We'll find out when he hits his pit stall this time around, though.
And we'll see what the objective is going to be here. No doubt you want to get that truck fixed. And there he goes. I think it was just the case that he forgot to select that he wanted to get the quick repair. We were, ironically enough, suggesting that, maybe you accidentally get it when you don't. And I think Austin Edwards, that's another mistake there. He just didn't take him when he should have, because you can get 4 tires, fuel, and the quick repair at the same time. It does not need to be done as the lights going on top of the pace car. That does not need to be done on separate pit stops. And that mistake it's a good thing. I think Edwards made the right call. You got to come down, you got to get it fixed. You're only going to give up very minimal track position, but instead of restarting on the outside of the front row, he's going to be behind some lap trucks.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting too, because it looks like the number 3 of Corrin got a black flag on the pit exit. That gave Maffett now the lead, with Edwards going to be side by side with him in the restart zone.
So we'll see what the 42 machine can do with black flags and everything. Green flag in the air. We're back underway for Myrtle Beach Speedway, and it is Kevin Maffett back to the race lead. And Jordan Corrin, what a move right off of the restart to come up the inside and take second away from Austin Edwards. Is that 42 going to be able to turn it up a notch? He hasn't been very good on these short runs trying to defend a position. We'll see if he's finally found something. The fight right now for P2. Edwards looking outside of the 3 truck, but it's going to all collapse at a race lead. Almost 3 wide. The 18 gets blocked as it was Corrin to the inside of the race lead.
Yeah, and Maffett's just going to let them go. Maffett has been a bit off the pace at times for the majority of the race, unfortunately for him tonight. But watch Edwards. He is getting towards that preferred line for him for the exits on the high side. Question is, can he get the run he needs to get by Corin as they're now side by side?
Side by side for the #1 position. How about a flashback to the very early laps of this race when it was Austin Edwards defended a race lead against Logan Clamp, but this time he will use it to pass Jordan Corin. The three got sideways in turn 1 and was not able to get back on him, and it'll be the 18th mission of Austin Edwards through all of that. Multiple pieces of contact with the outside wall, and another one just as he takes the race lead back. He makes the same mistake that's been plaguing him for the second half of this entire race.
And I'm confused as to why he keeps smacking the wall like that. I don't know if he needs to make a brake bias adjustment or something's going on with the truck where he's trying to have the higher line, but he's done that multiple times where he just sticks up against the wall in the entry into turn 1, trying to let off the gas, I think, and drag the brakes, and it ends up, instead of slowing down, smacking the wall. And now, it doesn't look like severe damage for now. The question is, can he keep himself off the wall? Because that could end up being significant again.
It could. Certainly, any damage you get on a truck, not what you want. I think, though, if he continues to make those mistakes like we saw last time, it got worse and worse as the long green flag stretch carried through. Good opportunity, though, as we have gone back and away to remind you that coverage of the DJ HD Truck Series on LSRTV and iRacing Live is brought to you by DJ Harris Designs. DJ Harris Designs is your one-stop shop for iRacing and NR 2003 paint schemes, from replicas to originals. DJ can hook you up. You can find him on Trading Paints by searching the name Daryl Harris, or we'll get you a direct link to his showroom. Just take a look at the live chat. Make sure that you support him and thank him for supporting the DJ Harris Designs Truck Series tonight. Round number 2 of 13 on the year from the Myrtle Beach Speedway. I keep waiting for Darrell Clement to get into this, and he's still, 2/3 of a second off per lap from Edwards and Corin. There's, I think, a significant difference speed-wise when you look at the difference between, of course, Austin and I think Jordan, and then Kevin and Darren right there. First and second, the significantly, I think, best two trucks at a racetrack. But, Darren Clement's been 4, then 3, then 2. He's only 1 lap down right now, Justin. So if he can get just another yellow out of this thing, he would have been able to fight all the way back.
Yeah, and he just has to hope and pray that there's an error caution flag on the racetrack, because he's got a okay truck. I think at least he might be able to maybe battle for the 3rd spot if he was back on the lead lap with Maffitt. He does have the pace, as you mentioned, with Edwards and Corin, but he still can possibly get himself a top 3.
And that's the objective. And we talked about it earlier, Gary. You fight for what you can get. If you get in a position early where you're multiple laps down, or even if you're somebody like a Lucas Graham who missed the start of this race, he wouldn't have finished 5th if he didn't just start anyways. He could have simply said, listen, I missed the first 18 laps, I was late getting into the race, and just take the 7th place, take the DNS. But instead he gets in there, he eventually gets ahead of the likes of Clampett and Jump, so there's going to be critical points when it comes down to talking about a championship that may be decided amongst just 10 or so cars over the course of an entire season that are able to show up on a week-by-week basis. You fight for what you can get, and if Darren Clement's able to, get around Kevin Maffitt, it would certainly pay off for him.
Corin just spun out in turns 1 and 2, entering turn number 1, and that carried all the way through the exit of 2. He didn't hit anything. Luckily, he managed to lock it down. So for that 3 of Corin, he got very lucky as he gets it back going.
Yeah, he locked it up, kept it out of the fence. That was certainly not the curbs that caused that one. That's just getting too hot down into turn 1. Funny, when we've seen Austin Edwards do the same thing, Justin, he's been tight, can't rotate the truck and up into the outside wall. When Corin overcooks it, it spins.
Yeah, I think, too, he overcooked it by at least 15, 20 miles per hour more than what you want to have at the time he started spinning around. But a great effort to basically pump a bit of the gas, hit the brakes, lock it down, and make sure he didn't make any contact, and wait until he is clear to make the contact. And now this will restack the field once again and get Clement back on the lead lap.
That is big news for Clement. I think it's the first time he's been on the lead lap since the opening 50 laps or so of this contest. So that could be huge. You never know what happens when it comes to late race battles for position. But Darren Clement certainly got a new shot of life.
Darren Clement is back on the lead lap once, well, eventually. Now he is, as he heads down the pit road, so Darren Clement could possibly finally get his way back into this race. Maybe he was just holding back. He has a little bit of a scuff on the right side of his truck, though, so maybe nothing too major for the time being. Probably could use a fast repair. I've never seen the 32 involved in any major incidents, so Clement could possibly be starting to slowly fight back into this race by the time the green comes around.
There's the wave by, so we do now have those 4 trucks back onto the lead lap. Also, no surprise that drivers came down pit road for service. Corrin was just in a position where he stayed out to get back to the race lead, and now decides to come down to pit road. There is some minor front-end damage, so I would certainly expect, if he does have the option, that he takes the quick repair inside of 75 laps to go for Myrtle Beach. And this thing all of a sudden has gotten very interesting.
Yeah, and now we're getting to the point where do the drivers have enough quick repairs? Because it's possible these drivers have run out here through having multiple times getting repairs or not remembering to uncheck the boxes, because Edwards and Corrin are both, it looks like, having to maybe get some repairs done rather than take the quick repairs. So I think they're out of the 3 total allowed, with Maffitt and Clement also being in the same situation possibly, especially now Clement, who did not use one.
And maybe saving those in your back pocket's going to help. It doesn't look like Corrin utilizes one on that trip down to the pit lane, and he barely makes it off pit road in front of the pace car. If he had not gotten out there before the iRacing.com pace car came by, he would have got stuck a lap down, trapped. Instead, he just beats it off of the pit lane, and he's got to catch up because the lights on top of the pace car are out. Get set for another restart for Myrtle Beach Speedway. This one going to come inside of 75 laps to go with a Myrtle Beach 250. Kevin Maffitt for about the 3rd time in a row. Going to be the control car out front. He leads Darren Clement out of turn 4. Green flag in the air. Here comes Edwards, already topside for the 18.
Yeah, he just caught the back of the line for that restart. Now the question is, though, did he make the pass on the 32 a bit early? But he did go on the outside rather than the inside to make the pass on that 32. I think that's pretty much legal. Now the question is, can he get by the 42, who has let drivers by on the past couple restarts?
Yeah, he has been very non-confrontational here, and he holds the bottom line. The 18 machine on the bumper. Austin Edwards has a better truck, so the 42 is going to do something. He's going to be overly aggressive. The 32 of Clement smacks the wall, and there's the move. The 42 of Maffitt gives way too much space and drives into the turn 1 wall. And Austin Edwards back to the race lead. Darren Clement going to regain second position just as he lost it.
It's very unfortunate, but fortunately though for that 42, he is still running. He didn't really get to that outside wall, but now this gives way for the 32 of Clement to see if he has any type of a challenge for that number 18 of Edwards, who was pretty much the only driver that has led or shown consistency in his momentum. But unfortunately, it's been so much consistency that he's gotten the outside wall a few times. So hopefully this run, he'll be able to keep off that wall.
And we'll get an onboard shot here with Darren Clement. That 32 started in second, but he has been playing catch-up for majority of this race. Had been laps down, very patiently taking this race caution by caution to get back onto the lead lap where he sits down. When you look up at your race leader, that's the gap to Austin Edwards. It looked like both of the trucks a little bit too high at the far end of the racetrack. The issue is if you're that second-place truck, you almost get in a tunnel vision state of sorts where you're looking at the truck in front of you. You almost start to base your braking points off of him, and I think Edwards missed turn 1, and because of that, that's why Clement missed turn 1 also. They just kind of followed each other up the hill.
Yeah, and it's still happening to the case where it looks like Clement's trying to match a bit of his entry line, and he just can't keep the same line and pace really as Edwards. So I think in this case, he might be just trying to see, okay, what's going to work here, what's working here, and try and see if he can make it stick from here on out. Because at this point, you see from behind, he's got a lot of space really between him and the 42 and the 3, especially since the 3, he started 3 seconds back of the line for the restart. Now, he's still 3 seconds back of the 32.
Yeah, he hasn't been able to make up that distance, and certainly these first few laps when the tires are the freshest. Again, it was about 2-3 yellows ago now that we said it would be the final trip down to the pit lane. I think that was a little bit presumptuous.
Yellow.
And
Caution.
speaking of which,
There it is, second time in a row. It is the truck from P2, and it is corner 2. The Calamity corner tonight catches another one, and Darren Clement lost it a little bit slower than some others. He was a little bit later to kind of lock it down, and it was a pretty good hit to the inside wall. You just talk about how hard he fought to get back onto the lead lap, and then he gets into second position and loses it.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate for that 32 of Clement. Hopefully, though, he'll be able to get back up and into... Oh, I don't think he's even... I think last time around he didn't even use his fast repairs, so it's going to be pretty interesting as we see now some of these drivers in pit road along with the 42, pretty much everybody else. And this is almost a key point in the race where you just have to not overshoot your pit box, as the 3 may have done. He did, unfortunately. Corin overshot his pit box.
Overshot the box a little bit. It'll cost him some time. Edwards, your race leaders, nice and easy. The number 1 pit stall will give him an upper hand on the race off of pit road. The call for that truck is also going to be rights, lefts, 4 tires, and maybe a tad of fuel, depending on how they want the race truck to weigh. More fuel, heavier truck. But the 18 machine's going to lead off. It'll be Maffitt second. And unfortunately for Clement, you're noticing this, Justin, as he's still down in the box. I don't think he has any quick repairs left. So if that truck's going to get any better, it's going to be a lot of service on the pit lane.
yeah, just took the 4 tires. Fuel got a little bit of the damage repaired just before the pace car. And we're starting to see this situation for a few different drivers. Right now, Corin's also having the same case, it looks like, down pit lane. So now it's to the where you can only get really 25-30 seconds of repairs, give or take, by the time you make it around to be able to get back to the pit lane if you decide to choose to do so to get the rest of the truck repaired. And it looks like with his strategy, he's choosing, I may as well just try and get to the finish line from here, because at the worst he can finish now is 4th.
Yeah, and listen, 4th is a decent result. You're basically midway through the cars that were able to make the start this evening. Not bad. Listen, if I'm 4 laps down, and at that point that put it down 5th or 6th, if you told me you could finish lead lap in this thing, to be in it with 50 laps to go or so, get P4, I'd take it. But I think it's the what if. He was second. He looked good. And unfortunately now, once again, after just overcoming so much adversity, he is once again behind the 8 ball. So we'll see the 8th DeVos at Edwards control the restart. It's Kevin Maffitt to the outside, the 32 with Clement third. On the inside of row number 2, green flag in the air. Dead even start, drag race to turn 1.
Yeah, and again, Edwards just able to have a good restart, try and pull on away, gets to his preferred high line, and now it's going to be an hour case of can you make sure you don't make a mistake and get the same damage you had from a few runs ago, because you're basically out of quick repairs. You caused a significant amount of damage, it could cost you the race at this point, and he's off to a pretty clean start. Speaking of damage, though, it looks like we mentioned Corin not having the quick repairs anymore at this point, too. Got damage in that incident, it appears, to avoid Clement, and now he is a lap down and struggling on the track. Actually, on the lead lap, I should say, but 11 seconds back, rather.
Yeah, he's really struggling. You saw that 3 machine get the wave around under the caution. He was very late, though, to pass your race leaders. He actually just took that wave by as they were headed into turn 3, coming to the restart. So maybe you thought that was a truck jump at a start. No, that was Corin taking his wave by. That's really why he's 11 seconds back. He's not, that slow. He doesn't have Austin Edwards' speed at the moment. Certainly, Austin Edwards, Logan Clampett, when the 44 was in this race, were the 2 drivers to beat. I think that he could also benefit from a yellow, but it's funny because at the beginning of this race, the conversation that we were having, Gary, is, how long could he go on Phil? Are we doing 80 lap runs? Are we doing 125 lap runs? And all of a sudden, it's been pit and get tires every single opportunity you can for the last handful of yellows. Only 2-3 laps till there's 50 to go.
Yeah, we're closing in onto that 50 to go mark, and pit strategy has been pretty much thrown out the window, possibly. I mean, at this point, you don't really have to worry about fuel. Tires, however, well, that's a whole different conversation. And of course, the right sides are usually the main part of these tracks that usually just get completely destroyed every single time. So these right front tires may be not be doing too well by the end of this race.
Yeah, certainly they're getting their use for him in, and I think these drivers are certainly happy there's no tire restriction, something that we see on Thursday nights here at LSRTV with the Sestra Series as the Xfinity Series cars. Hope you maybe join us this upcoming Thursday, every week, 9 o'clock Eastern, right here, LSRTV and iRacing Live, as they have a limit on tires, kind of what you'll see in the real-world side of things. Of course, their limit is very, small, 2-3 sets of tires at maximum. In a race at Myrtle Beach that goes green, that's fine, but the tire fall-off is not huge. Again, these drivers right now, the last lap for Austin Edwards was an 18.4. The best lap that he has run all night was an 18.0. So it is not significant fall-off. But even if it's 5 laps, like we saw early on, if you get a run of 20, 30, or 40, kind of in that mid-range like the last couple of dashes have been, these drivers want those tires because for Edwards, certainly he's in a position where I think if he gets tires, he's good. I don't think anybody's going to be able to pull a rabbit out of the hat and somehow find some extra speed. So his, incentive is to get the tires. If we get something like a late race yellow, 15, 10, or even less laps to go than that, then maybe somebody makes a decision. But I certainly think if any more yellows are to come, not right at the end of this race, 4 tires, the name of the game.
Yeah, that has to be the call, because by that point, your tires are going to be worn out. So I think if there's any runs more than 5 laps and there's a caution that comes out afterwards from here on out, you take the tires, you get the fuel, and in some of the cases with a couple of the trucks, you get whatever repairs you can to make sure your truck is handling the best it can be and has the most speed it has to be able to carry momentum. So you have to basically go with the pit stops from here on out, basically, as Corin, I think he's hoping that there is some luck at this point because Edwards is approaching him.
He's closed it in. Edwards is getting on the back bumper to Corin, and that's somebody else who had moments in this race where it looked like he may have been able to make some noise, and then it just hasn't come together. And listen, Austin Edwards has not run a perfect race. We've talked about the speed. He certainly had it, but everybody tonight has had their struggles. And I think that has kind of kept this field closer than it maybe should have been just based on speed alone. As you see Edwards now trying to get around the 3 machine. Corin really doesn't want to lose this lap, because if he does, he'd have to obviously, he would assume the lucky dog, because the next car, Lucas Cram, is 106 laps down. So that's not a concern. He's not going to lose out on the lucky dog to somebody, but certainly if caution comes out, he wants to be on the lead lap for it.
That's the one thing that the 3 of Corin more than desperately needs. He's trying to really just run as line that he can right now, but I don't think he really wants to obstruct the 18, but he's using that same line essentially, just a little bit higher lane is what the 18 took off of into turn number 1 and 2. 18 gets a little bit loose, still trying to come off the top side. So what the 3's trying to do is run essentially what the normal race line would be without obstructing the 18, but unfortunately that will not work, as of course, well, if you're going to be a lap car and try and stop the lead from passing you, well, that's a completely big mistake, but that 3 is still not giving up that lap down position.
He's not going to give it up, and as he runs on the outside, I think that he's finally going to be forced into that spot as Austin Edwards battled hard inside, and I think the 3 machine corner recognizing if I go in there 2 by 2 and really pinch him down, that doesn't benefit any of us. He's still trying. Listen, if the 18 makes a mistake, the 3 is going to go and pass him. There's no reason for the 3 to back off. Now, the concern I would have is we did see an incident when we were under commercial break earlier in this race, Justin, between a lap-down car trying to pass a slower lead lap car that involved this 3 truck that led to a yellow. If you're Corin, under no circumstances do you want to get into Austin Edwards. So it's a balance. You have to respect that he's the race leader, while also take advantage if you have a chance.
Yeah, you don't want to hit the race leader. That's a definite understatement of the night for sure. So I'm surprised he's fighting as hard as he can, because if there's a caution, he can get towards the lucky dog, and with there being 4 trucks on the track, still be in the same position for a restart. So at this point, I think he should just try and let Edwards go. Know that I'm going to at least finish in the 4th spot if this stays green. No need to fight aggressively and overwear Edwards' tires and risk making contact.
You just don't risk it. And for as much as we've seen trucks push down into turn 1, you'd have to be awfully gutsy to dive to somebody's inside late in a race like this. because if that truck does not stop, you're using the car in front of you as a brake.
Yeah, they have to be gutsy to really dive inside somebody, especially the leader, trying to get your lap back overall. That's just if you end up turning them, that's going to be a whole other story that you have to try to explain to them, and that more than likely will not go over well. So I get what the 3 is trying to do is just that run a defensive line essentially without trying to stop the 18's momentum, but you just have to know at one point is that if they catch you, then well, you just have to give it up at that point because you know they're faster if they so much as catch you.
Yeah, and listen, these drivers, I'm sure, having to race with each other at Daytona, still not entirely familiar with one another. Of course, there's familiar names, as we've noted, Logan Clampett, obviously one that jumps off the page, Austin Edwards. We've seen a lot of him recently here on iRacing Live. Turn 2 again. Yellow. Corin into the outside wall. There's the yellow. Turn 2 again. Claims another victim. And this time it's the 3 of Corin. Cautions out with 33 to go.
I got on the curbs. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, we both were seeing that exactly happening as that was going on. Hit the curbs aggressively. Again swings the truck around, this time right at the center of the racing surface, right against the wall. And that brings out another caution, and it's going to make it interesting now from here on out because he was in the lucky dog spot. I think at this point he might just take the wave to get back on the lead lap, but this again bunches back up the field with 30 coming towards 30 to go.
We come back live with about 30 laps to go in this race. And race leaders are on pit road. It is going to be the 4-tire decision for Edwards. I think there's too much time to try to stay out, so Clement's also going to be in. Maffitt's down pit road, and this may be another opportunity for the 32 to make some noise. He'll need help. Does he move Edwards? He'll need something out of the 18. If the 18 runs perfect, he's not going to catch him, but you got to think if you have so many opportunities, eventually you'll get it right. The 32, though, will give up a spot to stay in the pit lane there, get a little bit of extra damage repaired.
Yeah, trying to repair that truck as much as possible. He's off the pit road right now, so for Maffitt and Clement, is that both of those drivers would pretty much have to at least try the best that they can to do is somehow work together and stop the 18 of Austin Edwards from keeping that momentum. But the thing is, Edwards has had fantastic jumps on the restart, or fantastic restart timing, I should say, is much better wording. So for the 18, he's what the 42 has to do, essentially, I believe, may have gotten a speeding penalty, actually, exiting pit road.
We'll see if that's the case, but it certainly looks like some sort of a penalty because Austin Edwards definitely left the pit lane in first position and is currently being scored behind Maffitt in P2.
Yeah, I'm looking back at this right now, and we've seen this a couple times right now where I think it's something involving how they're exiting out of the pits, involving the curves in terms of how they're running it out. Either way, I think he's still in a good position here to pass by Maffitt either way. He's going to restart in a great spot. Maffitt's been letting by the faster trucks, knowing that it's not the best probably to hold them up, knowing that is a second difference in pace. And I think really Edwards wants to be on the high side. He's been really trying to diamond the truck off the corners from the high line the entire run, really. So I think Edwards, he's just saying, no problem whatsoever, can get by the trucks fairly quickly, I think, and once again, as long as he keeps it clean once again. And it looks like, Gary, you might have noticed exactly that with the pit exit, too.
Yeah, actually, just a little bit after he entered pit road, as looks like caution is going to be thrown again. Not sure for what reason, possibly just to make sure everything is correct. But for the 18, is that he was a little bit over 35 miles an hour just near the curve in turns 1 and 2, or sorry, 3 and 4. He was a little bit over 35 for that small section, so that could be why he's sent back to third place. That's why he was sent down for the speeding penalty.
So that explains the revised running order that we're seeing, and even with Clement having stayed in the box for that additional time, because the penalty kicks Edwards to the tail end of the group of lead lap trucks, and it'll be Maffitt, your race leader. Darren Clements on the outside of the front row in second position, and it'll be Austin Edwards there for third. They are lining up, though, it looks like single file, and And then we'll delay the caution flag one more time. Still trying to get everybody grouped back up. Pace car already dived down, so it'll jump back out, I think, down into 1 and 2. We were waiting on Jordan Corrin to catch up from P4.
Yeah, I think it was given the wave around to go back down to 1 lap down after having some repairs done on his truck. But it's now going to be the strategy of, I think if you're Maffitt, are you going to still play nice, or do you try and defend this time on Edwards knowing it's quicker? It's going to be interesting with this being possibly one of the final chances for restart, as Clement's now going to go into pits now with all this going on.
Yeah, we'll see what Clement does as he was actively scored in the number 2 position. He comes down pit road and maybe thinking, if we're going to keep getting a couple of delayed yellows, I'm going to come down and get some damage repaired. And we'll see what the decision is for the 32. I don't think it's an issue that takes him out of this race, or simply he would have gone down to the pit lane and parked it. But we'll see. He has taken the time to drive pit road speed, 35 miles an hour, all the way down to the end and into his pit stall. And do not see right or left side tires going up. So it does appear that he is getting that car fixed again. He is in communication with race control, so they're certainly giving him an accurate idea of what's going on, and it is going to be, it looks like, just some extra time to get the car fixed up.
And I think the pace car just dropped off the racetrack, guy.
Green flag.
Green flag back in the air. It's going to be a tough break for Clement, who's just recently off of pit road. But it is good news for Kevin Maffitt, because green flag back in the air. 24 laps to go for the Myrtle Beach Speedway. It's Edwards scored in second position, Corrin well off third, and Clemente then further back before, who missed the restart.
And guys, that really scrambled things up in terms of the timing of that, because Clement, I think, might have thought they were going to have one more time around on the racetrack under the caution flag, which is why he went to repair the front nose from some of the incidents from before. So just, I don't know what else to really say about that, as now the battle continues on here. Gary.
Yeah, not really sure either, but nonetheless, though, Austin Edwards still trying to get by on the outside of the 42, and turns 3 and 4, slides up, it's going to be the 42, but he somehow, for now, protects that first place position.
So far with a big slide, Edwards is going to go to the outside of the racetrack. This could be the final battle for the race lead, with the 20 laps to go from Myrtle Beach. The 42 a little bit loose in. Outside is where the speed is going to be off, and it is Austin Edwards again. The best on another restart. Clears the 42. One last-ditched effort not happening, as Maffitt got down onto the curbs and on the inside of the racetrack. Austin Edwards, courtesy of another good run. And I think at the end of the day, the mistakes aside, the yellows, the restarts, and all of that behind him, it's the speed that helps the 18 again.
Yeah, the fastest truck in practice, the fastest truck in qualifying, and showing again, he's been able to use a different line since the drop of the green to be able to have a great pace, and he's kept up that pace even with some of the damage and some of the mistakes he's had to be able to recover from said mistakes. It's going to be at least a very dominant victory for Edwards.
Yeah, if he can, I don't think it matters if he wins it by a second, 6, 10, whatever. A dominant victory is right. Once Logan Clampett wasn't able to complete the end of this race, it has been all Edwards out in front. Nobody has looked as good as him. Other trucks have led laps. Other trucks have had better restarts, better pit stops. But at the end of the day, when you're talking about a race that is decided on track with 250 miles, overwhelmingly, the advantage is going to go to the best truck of the night. And the best truck of the night is Austin Edwards, who's 15 laps away from victory lane.
Yeah, that 18 of Edwards right now, all he has to do is just run the corners as smooth as he can and keep it out of the outside wall, keep it off of the outside wall, rather. So still using that high line as his own little preferred lane just to keep his momentum up. He's very, very smooth now. He's finally gotten that rhythm back.
He's got the rhythm back, and that's something that he's been lacking. He really struggled towards the longest ends of the runs that we've seen tonight. I think it is also going to play into his hand, Justin, at the run to the end of the race. Now, a relatively short run. I think that's going to keep the 18 out of the wall, help him stay disciplined.
Yeah, it will at this point. I think at this point, has to just keep it calm, make sure he avoids any trouble in front of him. The trouble that I'm starting to poke towards, it looks like Clement is now back off the racetrack after smacking the wall in turn 2 and pulled back up to speed right in front of Edwards. He moved to the Clement moved to the bottom. Edwards went by on the high side.
No surprise, that's been his MO. Top side of the racetrack. I guess getting up and into the outside wall as many times as he hasn't scared him at all, because he is preferring now, it almost looks like, to run the outside line of the racetrack. And, you know, it's just a matter of time now. I think he tried to close this one out. The one thing that he needs to make sure he doesn't do is be the driver that brings out a yellow if there is one late in this race. Do not wreck it. Bring it home in one piece. That's the objective. Slow truck. Clement sideways at a 4. He just got that truck quick repaired down on pit road. Got back out, nearly wrecked it.
Yeah, looking at what happened, it looks like he just gassed it up a little bit too early, and that caused him to lose traction. That's where the banking change is, essentially. There's not a lot of grip on the apron, of course, because the racetrack has a lot of rubber on it. So for Clement, he almost completely messed up his own race there.
Almost, and that would have certainly, I think, ticked off Austin Edwards, because if he's thinking, I need to deal with another restart, and the 32's into the outside of wall again, he's barely going to be able to make it home.
Yeah, I think at this point he's saying, you know what?
And that's it. He's done. Pit road.
Yep. He's the best he can finish at this point is that 4th spot. The next driver back is Lucas Cram, 141 laps down. I think at this point he just is probably going to say, just pull in the pit lane. I got a top 4 at the very least.
Yeah, he fought through. He literally cannot lose any more positions if he parks it out or not. I think maybe he feels if he's just out on the racetrack for any longer, just a hazard at that point. He's done everything he can. Darren Clement's going to park the number 32 in the pit stall. He will go for 4 tires, so maybe he just is feeling like he needs some service, but now he is no longer behind the wheel of the number 32 machine, and I think Clement's night is going to be done. Again, he cannot fall any further back. He was the last car in the running order at a time late in this race where we almost ended with all the trucks still running on the lead lap, which would rival the number that we saw at the very start of it all. 5 laps left to go for Austin Edwards, leading by 4.3 seconds over Kevin Maffitt.
Doing a great job running the lines that he is right now. Of course, maybe a little bit uncomfortably too close to the wall, but as many times as he's hit it, I'm pretty sure he's starting to think, you know what's just the outside wall, it's fine, what could possibly go wrong? Of course, anything could go wrong as we hit 4 laps to go now, so Austin Edwards pretty much at this point, with that speed that he's entering, the worst that he could do is just slow his momentum up a little bit, but there is always that internal damage, but Edwards just running the middle to top side lanes in turns 3 and 4 right now. So, oh my goodness, as he almost completely slams the outside wall after number 4 grazes, but right now he's got about 2.5 laps to go on the back straightaway.
Yeah, it's going to be a long, hard-fought night for Edwards. There were points that he was at the highest of highs, qualified on a pole position, only driver to go sub 18 seconds, and in other moments has slowed the inside of the racetrack, another hurt car. It is Jordan Corrin trying to limp home in 3rd with heavy engine damage on the 3. There'll be no caution as Edwards looks for the white flag in a race that he saw challengers come, challengers go, but certainly going to make up tonight for a lack of results so we could go at Daytona International Speedway. Austin Edwards going to come down the back straightaway for the final time, but a Myrtle Beach Speedway first win in the DJ Harris Designs Truck Series. It is Edwards victorious at Myrtle Beach.
A dominant run for him today. Had some battles with Logan Clampett earlier on, but had the fastest truck in practice and qualifying and the race to come away with the victory today, his first of the season.
He's got some celebrating to get to, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to chat with him at Victory Lane. Austin Edwards burns it down, your winner tonight in the Myrtle Beach 250. We will step aside one final time, and when we come back, post-race show, we'll chat with your top finishers to get you set for the next race of the season. It comes to you next Sunday from Martinsville Speedway. You're watching LSRTV's coverage of the DJ Harris Designs Truck Series. Stay tuned, because post-race coverage coming to you next on iRacing Live.
My name is Steven Corpenos. I'm a senior web developer here at iRacing, and I work on the beta UI. It's funny because iRacing has been around for 10 years, but we want to keep delivering the best possible user experience to our customers, and we've found that the old UI isn't exactly what we're trying to deliver in 2018. We want to use new features and provide the best possible experience when using the sim. One of the projects that I've been working on is some custom heat racing configuration for hosted races. We've been listening to our customers. Everyone's been asking for custom heat races. Maybe you want to tweak a few things with the preset iRacing configurations. Well, now you can using the beta UI. So once you're at the home page of the beta UI, you just go to create a race. Then from there you go to your set race options. And you'll notice here under event types, you can actually choose heat racing. First, I'm going to show you how to create a new format from scratch. You can choose the number of entrants. And as you can see, when I made that change, the change was actually reflected on the right side in the graph. Also, you can use the estimated duration at the bottom of the graph when you're changing the length to see what the total duration of your event will be. In addition, you can customize every aspect of the session information, practice, qualifying, heat races, consolations, and of course, the final feature race. Because the beta UI allows us to develop features that are robust and complex, this feature will be exclusively available on the beta UI. Once you've made all of the changes, you can hit save. Say you forgot what you selected. You can always preview it using the preview format button. We are very excited to release the brand new heat racing configuration feature that will be available in Season 3 of iRacing.
Once again, photo finish here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Will it be Tim Hogan? It's going to be Christopher DeMerit at the line.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of LSRTV, and it may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Live Sim Racing LLC and iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations. LSRTV would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. Back live from the Myrtle Beach Speedway, you're watching LSRTV's coverage of the G.J. Harris Design Truck Series post-race from the Myrtle Beach Speedway. As we welcome you into our post-race coverage, Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince, Gary Weaver with you, with Brett Wheeler in the production trailer. We will go trackside to get post-race reaction in just a minute. First, a quick look top to bottom. These are your LSRTV full race results. Austin Edwards to the race win with Kevin Mathett coming home in the number 2 position, Jordan Corrin's 3rd, and Darren Clement in 4th. Those were the drivers who made it all the way home. Lucas Cram, DNF P5, Logan Clampett dropped out of the race lead P6, and Andrew Jump rounds out the 7 truck field tonight from Myrtle Beach. Low number compared to what we saw a week ago. Should see many more trucks joining us next week for Martinsville. But in the meantime, let's go down. I believe Justin currently standing by with our 3rd place finisher. That's the 3, Jordan Corrin.
Yes, indeed. Jordan Corrin joins us here in the broadcast booth, finishing off the race 1 lap down in the 3rd spot. How are you feeling about the top 3 tonight?
Oh man, that was. Oh, I was just off tonight. Just one of those days, you know, where you're like confident. I came in confident. I came in thinking, hey, this might be a way. I thought a lot more people would show up, and then people started telling me, we don't have Myrtle Beach, and I was like, oh, well, this is just wonderful, you know. But other than that, it's good to see Austin, you know, a Corn Motorsports car win. It was a good battle up there. You know, I couldn't do anything about what happened there at the end. I was kind of just ran out of talent going out of 4, so yeah.
Yeah, fans just seeing that just as you were finishing up your answer on the screen where you lost control of your truck going out of turn 4 and smacked the wall with a couple laps to go into the front stretch inside wall. But you discussed a little bit about being a bit off, maybe in terms of the pace. How difficult was the race for you today to try and keep up with the pace of drivers like Austin Edwards today?
Well, you know, Logan, he just quit. Saying, you know, this place is, he doesn't like it. He didn't like the experience. I thought a lot of people would like the short track experience, but, you know, it's not a very popular place, and I guess that created an interesting style of racing that I wasn't really ready for.
So yeah, the next race, of course, shifts over to Martinsville, 250 laps. What do you hope to see there once the series shifts over for the third race of the season there?
I definitely would like to see, some people, you know, actually showing up, but more than that, I want to see, you know, the same bump and grind racing we usually see at Talladega, or not Talladega, Martinsville, sorry. But, you know, and at the same time, when you put a lot of rookies combined with the, you know, experienced drivers we have in this series, there's going to be a lot more than bumping and grinding, that's for sure.
Real quickly, is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
I would like to thank SimSpeed Shop for being our one-stop shop for button boxes. Also, got to thank everyone at Highball Energy. Not on the car this week because, you know, just thought it would be fun to run a custom scheme for once. And, you know, I also have to thank my parents for allowing once again, you know, for me to be out here racing with these guys. It's a privilege, and it's just such a fun way to, you know, spend a Sunday night. That's for sure.
Thank you very much for the time, Jordan. Congratulations on the third place finish tonight.
No problem. Thank you for having us.
And that was Jordan Corrin finishing off third today in today's event. Evan?
Yep, big thanks to him. We did have race winner Austin Edwards standing by, still seeing if we can track him down. So in the meantime, we'll toss it even further down to the pit lane. Gary standing by with Darren Clement, who comes home tonight, P4.
Yeah, P4 with the 32 of Darren Clement, who unfortunately didn't really finish the race, but also didn't really lose any positions. Had a little bit of trouble. So unfortunately, though, that 32 couldn't really finish with everybody else. Though Darren, you did a great job managing to hold on to that truck to the end of the race while you could.
Yeah, I haven't had much time on this track, and learning the line as I was racing a little bit. Had some fast laps, put down some pretty, I think I matched my qualifying time later on in the run, but I just got frustrated after I thought we were going to go yellow one more time. I came down and tried to get some final adjustments and a little bit of damage fixed on the car, and then I got caught way deep on the restart, and I was just overdriving and threw it in the wall.
Yeah, unfortunately that did happen, but to manage to come on with a 4th place finish, and as far as points go, you are 3rd in the point standings, only 2 points off of Jordan Corrin, and tied with 80 points for Logan Clampett, who's also in 2nd place for the point standings. So luckily you do really have a little bit of a slight buffer. You have an advantage in the point standings, but next week we do head to Martinsville, however. So what are your thoughts heading into that race next week?
Not one of my favorite tracks. Really not a decent track for me. I've struggled there in the Xfinity cars and the K&Ns. Trucks haven't really ran too much there, so I'm gonna have to get on track and get some time in so I can hopefully finish top 5 next week.
Hopefully we will see you in the top 5 next week. Of course, before we let you go, who would you like to give a shout out to for your 4th place finish?
I'd like to thank Jordan for putting this all together for all of us here, and I'd also like to thank my teammates over at Iceman and Highball Energy for being on the truck tonight, and you guys for putting on a great show for us all.
Has definitely been well. We'll go ahead and let you go. Congratulations again on your 4th place finish this week.
Thank you.
That is your 4th place finisher, Darren Clement. Also, big thanks, Jordan Corrin, for joining us. I don't think we're going to be able to locate Austin Edwards in time, but I want to thank all of your top finishers who were able to lend us some time post-race. Say a big thanks to them. And Gary, recap what was an interesting night tonight for Myrtle Beach. You heard it there from Corrin, who on the admin side of things, not a lot of drivers able to make it into this race, varying circumstances. He expects that to change, and we change it up. It's still short track, but we go to Martinsville, and it's a completely different animal next week. But tonight, we had a lot of green flag runs, a lot of yellows, a lot of restarts. Austin Edwards won. I think the best truck running at the end did get the win.
Yeah, Austin Edwards had, of course, a very dominating performance. A little bit of trouble through the mid-race, of course, with the outside wall once in a while, but he did manage to pull through with those faster pairs. So congratulations again to the 18 for showing perseverance and pulling through to the end of that race.
At 139 laps, so more than halfway, was paced by the 18 machine. And now with Daytona and Myrtle Beach in our back pocket, Justin, we look forward to Martinsville next week. It's a short track, but it's a whole lot bigger. And you're talking about long straightaways into hard-breaking quarter entries. That'll be a ton of fun. Week 3 next Sunday.
Yeah, that's going to be a very intense race where drivers will be fighting to get to the bottom line, try and gain track position, and we might see a few different chrome horns being pulled out and being placed on the front ends of some of these trucks to try and battle for the race victory.
We hope you join us then, but the good news is that does it for us here tonight for the Myrtle Beach Speedway, that you don't have to wait until next weekend to catch more live sim racing action here on LSRTV and iRacing Live. We're back with you tomorrow on October the 15th, 9:30 Eastern Time start for the next round of the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series playoffs. That race you can find over on the iRacing Esports Network, and you can also find Wednesday's broadcast there, the 17th and 9 o'clock start for the eSpeed Contender Series that are back here on the LSR TV channel this Thursday, October the 18th, also 9 Eastern. The Sesra Series is in action. Of course, you can find our full broadcast schedule, www.livesimracing.com. But the best way to stay up to date with us is by following us on social media. You can give us a like at facebook.com/LSRTV official and follow us on Twitter at LSRTV for more information. On behalf of our entire team, for the folks behind the scenes at LSR TV, and for your broadcast team tonight. For myself, Evan Pasoko, for Justin Prince, Gary Weaver, and our producer, Brett Wheeler, we want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Austin Edwards, a winner in the DJ HD Truck Series as we head to Martinsville Speedway. That race comes up next week on Sunday, October the 21st. That race and every race on 2018 can be found right here on LSR TV, your home for sim racing. Until next time, good night from South Carolina. The following is a special presentation of iRacing on LSR TV, your home for sim racing.